Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon. Sorry. Um, Thank you very much for joining me today to talk about the 2024 ANZ Seeds of Renewal grant program. We have had quite a lot of people sign up today, but I'm not going to sit here and wait for all of them to join because we do find that not everyone joins. And also, look, if any of you have to leave at any time or those kind of things, we will be sending out a copy of the presentation and also a link to the recording. So in the next couple of days. So if you've missed anything or anything like that, we'll send this information on to you. As I said, I'll get started in a minute. I'd just like to let you know that where possible, I like to, work with who we've got in the room. So we'll kind of talk about the grant program and the basics of it at the start, and then I'll have a break in the middle to just see if people have got questions and want to ask some really specific things around the program rather than waiting till the end. The second half of the program is dedicated to kind of giving those grant seeking tips and tricks. But I'm also conscious that some of you may be really experienced grant writers, and I don't want to be, wasting your time or telling you how to do things. And as I said, the slides can be quite useful also just to reference if this isn't necessarily information that you need to be spoken about. So I will share my screen and we'll get onto it. If you could put any questions you've got as we go along into the chat, that'd be great, because then when we break, I can go to you directly. And I think that's all the housekeeping we really need. So we're here today for the ANZ Seeds of Renewal 2024 grant program. I'm Danielle Griffin, the program manager for Foundation for Rural and Regional Renewal. Firstly, I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the country that I'm coming to you from, which is on the south coast of New South Wales. And also just acknowledge everywhere that you are coming to across Australia. This is a national program and open to people in rural, regional, and remote Australia. And it's great to have you here and share in paying our respects to the elders, past and present, and extending that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people today. As I said, we'll do a little bit about FRRR and ANZ just to provide the background on our partnership and our organisations. We'll talk about the grants program itself. We'll have some questions after we've talked about the grants programs, and then go into the kind of grant seeking tips and also some resources that FRRR have that you can go and look for on our website if you want additional support. FRRR is the only national foundation in Australia that has been specifically set up to focus on social and economic strength in remote, rural and regional areas, aligning with government philanthropy and community purposes investments. But when we talk about social and economic strength, really we focus on that amazing strength within communities and often the grassroots of rural, regional and remote Australia to understand what they need and what they want. And what we're looking to do is find the funding and the investment to make those priorities become a reality. We've been partnering with ANZ since 2003, so it's a really strong partnership of 22 years. And they and I think this grant program really is a testament to their kind of, while they're aligned to their brand purpose, they work with us and they really understand that, we're looking at those small organisations. We're able to kind of tell them the stories that are going on in your communities and explain to them why, it's important to fund a community of 30, and sometimes it's important to fund a community of 30,000, that those needs in those communities are really real. So over $5 million has gone into the program. since 2003. So ANZ does have environmental, social and governance focus areas of financial wellbeing, environmental sustainability and housing. So these are the themes that influence the criteria for this grant program and what we're trying to support through the program. The grant's now been open since last week, and it will close at 5 p.m. on Thursday, the 1st of August. There's 250,000 available, with grants up to the value of $15,000. We typically end up distributing probably between 20 and 25 grants. We've had grants as small as, $500 come in. So, the grant program really is for any project that aligns to those key elements of improving environmental sustainability in your community, improving financial well-being within the community, improving access to housing, and also, just as a bit of a catch-all, really those projects that help communities thrive. Overarchingly, the program is about vibrant and sustainable communities, and we appreciate that sometimes those three themes may not be specifically what your communities need. So we are interested in understanding what really broad community projects are out there that will make a significant difference to the future sustainability of communities. I'll just go into those themes a little bit more because it's nice to be able to focus and understand if the project you've got in mind actually aligns to this grant. So with regards to environmental sustainability, projects could be educating local communities on environmental sustainability, improving environmental standards within communities, supporting or accelerating the adoption of better environmental practices, and encouraging community participation to improve environmental sustainability. I appreciate with the climate change and solutions discussions now, more and more, these kind of projects are really important in your communities. A lot of land care groups, community gardens, but even, organisations that are just trying to, I suppose, enhance their operations by looking at the adoption of renewable and better environmental practices are all projects we've seen in the past, and they do tend to be probably the most common project that we receive into this program. So this is an example of a community land care group, the Condon Mine Land Care Group, who developed a local community nursery to propagate native plants and propagate seeds. Look, this is a really good example of, when we talk about a project versus a program, we often talk, the project is actually setting things up. The program is really understanding what will happen once all that, with here, they needed to get irrigation, pots, potting mix and potting benches. The really critical thing was who was actually going to benefit from that. So one thing that was really interesting was that they employed a project officer 3 hours a week for 1 year. So we're very open in this grant program to understanding that while volunteers are critical, that it's also really important sometimes to have a paid role. And while $15,000 isn't a lot of money, a few hours a week can make a difference to have someone who's actually dedicated to enabling something to be set up and to be run. Appreciating that, a lot of volunteers have their own work to do and you can't necessarily expect them to be there every week. So this is a really good example of a really well thought out project that made sure that what they wanted to do could happen. And also, they actually managed to get some of their trainees to actually be trained in Cert 2 conservation programs. So a really extensive project occurred for, just under $15,000. Improving financial well-being. So this is about building financial knowledge, promoting better financial behaviour and decision-making, supporting job readiness, and improving money management skills. Typically, we see these kind of projects being applied to either young people that are job seeking, or other marginalised people in the community who may need to increase their knowledge in this area, or just around the issues of employment. So always interested in understanding what would make a difference in your community with regards to financial wellbeing. In this example, it was supporting school leavers with a disability to transition to employment. And once again, they employed a skilled financial professional to actually, deliver the program to them in a way that was really engaging and hands-on. So we're always really conscious of, however this project is being delivered, is it actually supporting the needs of that audience? So people with a disability, it's really important that the trainer is sensitive and understanding of their needs and learning abilities, and also understanding how they might get to those projects, what else they've got going on. And when we look at an application, we're looking at what the scheduling looks like in regards to how the group running a project is actually thinking about that audience and their ability to participate, and how the project is wanted. Improving access to housing. This is probably an area where we receive the least amount of applications, to be honest. And that's because we do appreciate that housing is a big issue and often involves quite a lot of money. But at the same time, we're really interested in creative projects. And it could be looking at people that are at risk of homelessness, or actually experiencing homelessness, including kind of considering how we ensure that people with a disability have access to community facilities. So we're actually improving their participation and their access to or livability within a community. So both in more general community facilities, often we've supported projects that improve the facilities for people with a disability, or more specifically looking at accommodation facilities for people living with a disability. So there's a breadth of kind of what we will consider under that theme. This is a really good example of responsive emergency accommodation, which was up in Gunnedah, the Aboriginal corporation there. I remember this project really, it was actually providing additional crisis accommodation for 12 months, so that if someone came to them and they didn't have housing available, they could put them up in a hotel or some other similar temporary accommodation. One thing that was really important to understand was what it meant to be able to provide that crisis accommodation, because that means those people running programs are then able to actually engage with those people more meaningfully, immediately when they need that support. And I suppose the stories I'm telling are really what people tell us when they write an application, why this is so important, and how it then changes the trajectory of people who need crisis, who may need housing down the track, and supports actually that organisation in delivering its services to the community. Projects that help communities thrive. As I said, it's really about vibrant communities. We're really looking for that diversity and inclusion, that enabling of strong social capital, where a lot of people can participate in the project, and also sustainable communities. How is it kind of innovating and building on an opportunity or a problem that might be in the community, to deliver more medium to long-term economic benefits or social benefits. The project we've got here is a little bit involved. It was a strategic plan for the Rex Theatre, which is in the Mallee region in Charlton in Victoria. And they had a great plan to engage a consultant to deliver a workshop series and co-design that with the strategic 10-year plan. There was engagement with the Rex board at the start to ensure that that board understood and was on board with kind of the way that the project would be delivered. running those community workshops in that community, and finally producing a strategic roadmap and publishing it and starting to bring it to life, and having it there to guide all the future activities of the organisation. I thought it was kind of interesting also just to come back to you and show you their reporting back on this in regards to the 5 in-person workshops that they held, and also the 1 online survey that was held. So we can see that they had a really good turn up at the Charlton Theatre of 16 community participants. The numbers at the other ones are quite low. They had 2 participants, 1 participant and 5 participants. But the online survey received 60 responses. So I wanted to show this because we know it's really hard to do this kind of work and plan this engagement, and you mightn't always get your community turning up. More and more, we think that, online is a great opportunity to engage people and let them have their say, and navigating that, and also things like vox pops. So instead of expecting them to come to you, maybe going and sitting at the local supermarket and talking to people as they come out. But I just thought this was a really good example to show you, of what a group did. And look, despite the low numbers, they've got a great plan and they're starting to implement it, and they've actually got a lot of buy-in and also representation from really diverse groups being involved. So this is really just about encouraging people, to think big about what they want to do in their community, and look at this grant to see if possibly it will present for them. Eligibility criteria is obviously really important. FRRR has the unique capacity to not just fund people who have deductible gift recipient tax status, but all not-for-profit organisations with either an incorporation certificate or an ABN. Alternatively, you might be auspiced by an organisation that is not-for-profit and has those requirements with their written approval. The projects obviously must be for charitable purposes and offer a clear public benefit. And we only take 1 application per grant round per organisation. What we can't fund, and I suppose that's just is federal, state and local government organisations, political organisations, religious or sectarian organisations that are involved in purely religious or sectarian activities. We acknowledge that a lot of religious and sectarian organisations do broader community work, and so we ask, if you are looking at this kind of grant, that you just consider that it needs to be beyond merely your congregation. The project must have a broader community benefit than that. Also, primary and secondary schools aren't eligible in this grant program because ANZ is a banking institution. They have some governance in regards to promoting to children, and this grant can be seen to conflict in that way. And also with federal, state and local government organisations, they are ensuring that they don't show any political bias in supporting any of those projects. So that's the reason for those not being eligible in this instance. We won't fund ongoing core organisational or operational costs, so your rent, your utilities, your regular wages. However, anything that's project related, so if your building is suddenly having to open an additional night to operate a particular program, then we'll definitely look at what additional utilities costs might be associated with that project. So, and if you have staff that will be doing additional work or will be doing work that is dedicated to the project that you're delivering, we will definitely look at those wages within the project context as something that is eligible. Sport, recreation and social activities are not considered charitable activities under Australian law. So, but we do fund a lot of, sporting clubs and recreation reserves, etc., because we understand often the work that's going on is not just advancing the sport, but is actually having a broader community benefit. So if you are an organisation of that ilk, I would suggest don't look for equipment or anything that is really directed to the sport or advancing just those people that are playing the sport, but look more broadly at what else your club does and how your activities will benefit them. We don't fund overseas travel or overseas projects. This really does need to be a local community activity. That's the outcome. Prizes, gifts, trophies, or awards are also not eligible in this instance. So we suggest if you are running an event and you want to do anything like that, you just look for a sponsor or a local business perhaps to support that kind of activity. Projects do need to support the community, not a private business or a sole trader or private interest. So please ensure that you're really clear on where the benefit is, and if any funds are being raised, how those funds are coming back to a not-for-profit organisation and then being utilised. We also can't fund projects that are solely focused on animal welfare. We appreciate that many volunteers work at animal welfare organisations, or animal kind of support systems can be an important part of the community. So it just needs to be a broader kind of example of where the human benefit is in regards to any projects relating to animal welfare. And just in your application, we ask for financial information in the body of the application form. And so you are required to provide that financial information to the best of your ability. There's room to make a comment if you want to make any clarifications on the numbers that you give us. If you have received an FRRR grant in the past and you haven't reported on it when it's due, so if you've got an active grant going at the moment, don't worry, you don't have to report on it until it's actually due, 12 months or 14 months after you've received the grant. But if you've got something that was awarded, over 12 months ago and it hasn't been reported on, then you aren't eligible to apply unless that report is received. So once again, feel free to give us a call if you're unsure about anything that might be outstanding, or you need to discuss with us any projects that you currently are still working on, and we can see how that can be negotiated. The projects are the funding is for projects that will be completed in November 2024 to December 2025. So we can't fund activity that's going to happen over the next couple of months because obviously you won't know if you've got a grant. So that's what we mean by retrospective. We will, however, fund the second stage of projects. So an existing project that might be staged, that you're looking for funding, that's going on now, but you're looking for the next iteration of funding, is definitely something that can be considered within this grant round. Please provide us with any missing documentation. We ask for photos, just one photo when you put in an application. And we also really appreciate any evidence of quotes over $1,000 for what your expenditure is. And also, we are really keen to encourage people to provide us with letters of support or evidence of how the community is going to support this project. So this comes down to what makes a project successful. Really strong alignment with one of those key focus areas that I've just discussed. Really evidencing that you're encouraging participation of people in the community who may be more marginalised, and ensuring that there's a broader opportunity for them to participate as well. Building local capacity. So, really showing us how increased resources or supporting volunteers or equipment will actually have that broader outcome of making the community able to do more. Once again, showing kind of the outcome of the beneficiaries and all the community, in its increased ability to thrive. And as I just said, a letter of support from local stakeholders. So a really great example of that is if you're running a project and you're wanting to engage the local aged care facility, we'd really want to see a letter of support that says you've spoken with them, they're excited about the project, they think this project will have these benefits for them. So just something that evidences if you're referencing any other group in your community that might be coming to enjoy or participate in your project, that you've already engaged them. This is also really important with any Indigenous engagement that might be occurring for your project, that we understand that you have spoken with your local elders or Indigenous group, and they are interested and excited about participating in the project. What we find when we're assessing projects that ultimately become unsuccessful is that you're really just doing the same thing over and over again. So it's nothing new. As I said, you can be going on to a next stage, but we really want to see this grant kind of fostering new opportunities or building on something that is going to strengthen the community even more. It's really important that you articulate, what the need or opportunity is, and I'll go into this a little bit more with regards to grant writing tips. Sometimes people launch into telling us about a project and it's not quite clear, the why of the project. So we just really ask that you try to firstly articulate what the need or opportunity is in your community. And when I say a wish list of nice to have things, it's really not being vague, really saying this is important to the community. I always say, it's about what will happen if we do this project, and also what will happen if we don't do this project. That kind of is that compelling statement that makes me think, okay, I really need to understand this. It's very important. It's going to have a great outcome. So just really, be convincing when you're writing your applications. And once again, if we don't see that engagement with beneficiaries or key stakeholders, we're really inclined to just be wondering why the project, is important. When we say, have you provided enough information? It is a competitive grant round. So here's some really good questions that we kind of tend to ask. Who owns the building is always really important. We appreciate that you might be renting a building and needing, still responsible for some infrastructure in that building. But it's important for us to understand who owns the building and the length of the lease that's associated with that building. Have you got any planning permits or approvals for any infrastructure work that you're looking to do? That's always important for us to understand. Bringing to life a project in regards to how participants might be recruited for a financial wellbeing program. And also, once again, understanding how the local Indigenous owners have been consulted. What kind of experts might be involved in your project that might be environmental? That's always important, but you may not necessarily be engaging an expert, or you may actually have volunteers that have those kind of skills. So just letting us know who the people are that are working on the project and their credentials. As I said, I think the things around, is the project really important to the community, and is the project charitable? Who is going to benefit directly from its delivery? Are just those things that you want to be really clear on when you put an application together. Just in regards to this program, I am one of the assessors on it. So myself and my support officers work with me in reading all the applications. Where we do have questions, we may follow up. And And then we actually have a shortlist and we talk it through with ANZ volunteers and the lead of our place area. So we get a really broad perspective on projects. We often like to look to see if anyone has any experience in these communities, but we do ask you to tell us about your community as well in the application, because that gives us a really good sense. You know, we go through and we ensure we understand the social economic index for places, the populations, and all those kind of things come in to play, and not necessarily to look at just about disadvantage or how many people are going to benefit, but you know, we really look at that broad geographic and social environment of rural, regional, and remote Australia. Ultimately, our recommendations go to the FRRR CEO. So I can assure you that there's really strong governance in regards to how we review, assess, and make decisions regarding these grants. Ultimately, the winner is your community. So everyone will be notified in writing about the outcome via email, and successful organisations will be told how to receive their funding. If you are unsuccessful, I don't like really saying this at this point of the program, but I encourage you to really call FRRR, and I also encourage you at this stage that if you've got any questions, to call FRRR during your grant writing process before you put in your application. We've got really great people on the phone that can answer any questions and also may give you suggestions that can strengthen your project. Now, I'm going to take a quick break and just have a look at the chat and also throw it to everyone to see kind of questions people might have. Okay, I'll just go to the start. Access to housing. Can the facility be a community garden space? You would need to be relating it to either the participants either being at risk of homelessness or experiencing homelessness in regards to where that benefit aligns to housing, unless potentially it was related to disability and that access to gardening in that regard. I would suggest that if you're looking at a community garden space or a project of that nature, you would be better off aligning it either to environmental sustainability or to the other projects that help communities thrive. We have a program coaching from housing stress to home. Yeah, no, that sounds like a great project. Just saying it's a prototype. So definitely we're interested in, you know, feasibility, you know, or studies that might then advance a bigger project. So we're definitely open to looking at projects like that. What is the definition of regional? That's a very good question. Off the top of my head, I believe Ipswich is what we consider to be RA1. So that is regional area zoned 1, which is a metro area. So regional is remote area 2. What I'll do is when I send out the slideshow and the booking, I'll actually put a link into the remote area workforce indicator where you can put in your community and it will come up with what the rating is, just so people know. Just we are, you know, our remit is to support communities in this area. So unfortunately, I don't believe Ipswich is eligible. In some instances, we funded Ipswich where we consider there's peri-urban and there's been disaster issues, but I will clarify that for you. Someone's asked if travel within Australia is permissible. If your organisation is wanting to build the capacity of the organisation by them attending events interstate. We have funded these things before, but they're probably not necessarily the highest priority. We probably would be looking more at volunteers who are going to benefit from this. And it will really depend on the size of the organization. And so it's quite a big, it can be a grey area, but we do pay for flights. We obviously, but we've got to be careful of it not being a scholarship or necessarily individual professional development. So it would really be important to understand how that travel then contributes to that individual or group of people coming back to the organisation and then building capacity within the community. Someone's asked, does the non-profit group also have to be a charitable group to be eligible to apply? No, non-profit groups, vary in many ways, but the biggest, I suppose, definition is that all funds go back into the organisation and aren't dispersed to members. And if that organisation folds, then those funds are put towards another charitable objective. So you don't have to be a charitable group per se, but the project itself must be charitable. There is a sample draft application on the website, so you can access an application sample via the webpage. Community cooperative. Yes, so someone's just written a really great example there. They're a community cooperative. They've invested by purchasing shares and running a cropping program. And all the funds go back into community projects. So yes, that is eligible as long as those people investing aren't getting a profit from those projects. Yep, I can see you shaking your head, Cassandra. So that sounds great. Men's circles focusing on preventing domestic violence and improving mental health. I'm not sure where that would fit into this project, because you can look at that other projects that help communities thrive, but these kind of groups tend to be more niche and more narrow. And I think other projects that help communities thrive are definitely for broader community projects than more niche. This is definitely something that you could look at in our Strengthening Rural Communities program. There is a nutrient grant program opening tomorrow that's up to $5,000, and we funded more niche projects through that. And I think it's just closed, but we also have a project called In a Good Place. So it only runs annually, but you might want to look at something like that in the future. And you're asking about training facilitators for the men's circle. In those other grant programs, definitely training facilitators is something that we've done, and I just actually funded in another project for children's mental health wellbeing. So definitely men's circles and trained facilitators are something that FRRR would fund in other projects. The auspicing organisation, yes, it does need to be a not-for-profit organisation. It can't be a for-profit organisation. So it does, you need to have someone that has that legal status of non-for-profit. Okay, I think we've covered everything there. Does anyone have any questions from the floor? No? Okay, I'll share my screen again and we'll go through this applying for a grant. If you do need to leave, if this information is something that's not really adding value to you, I thank you very much for your time today. It's really great to see so many people interested in this grant. And as I said, I really encourage you to speak to FRRR and, look through the guidelines and that to consider if this is the best grant for you or other grants that we might have coming up. And I will share all this information with you in the next 48 hours. Okay, applying for a grant. So we really look at that planning, and more planning. I find this a really good slide, or a good, thing to look at when you're going around. What are you going to do? Why are you doing it? When will you do it? Where will it happen? Who will be involved? How are you going to do it? Pay for it. How much will it cost? I think they're all the questions you need to answer when you're putting an application. Don't miss any of those ones. Read all the grant information. As I said, not-for-profit, ABN, clear public benefit. So the what, why, and who. We really look to see, are you solving an issue or are you creating an opportunity? So I often adopt the same kind of language when I write grants myself, or write applications, to say we are solving this issue, or this opportunity exists in our community to do B. And then just the details of it. What are you going to do? Is it an activity, a program, training, equipment purchase, infrastructure project? Once again, why is it important for your community, the need or the opportunity? And what will happen if you do not do this project? That can often be really, really compelling. Any statistics, research, local economic or social impact is great to give us. You have to appreciate we might be, reading 70 or 80 applications. So we don't always have the opportunity to go and kind of do a bit more in-depth research. So if you can give us that background, it's really important. A great example, we want to run community recovery events, is a bit of it, very weak, very vague, versus we'll run 3 workshops of this type for this community with the aim of doing this, and we will spend the funds on this. Answering the why. Once again, don't be vague, be really specific. How do you know about the need? Was it from a consultation? Was there a community survey? Was there a community meeting? More and more these days, I get people sharing like Facebook kind of posts with me, where they might have, asked people about a particular idea, or, there's been a discussion about a particular issue in the community. So definitely that kind of evidence that demonstrates the engagement of people on a particular subject is really, really relative. Who will be involved? So other community organisations and businesses, volunteers, the actual participants themselves, and the beneficiaries. Who's it going to serve? That kind of thing is really important to understand. We really look, obviously very strongly on volunteers, and even just seeing what the kind of in-kind support that might come from other businesses or other areas of the community is a great way of showing us that people are excited or really invested in the outcome of this project. The how, when, and where. Just those, those key project stages. And also, as we talked about, do you need permits, OH&S? What's the state of COVID in these times, or anything else that might be a challenge in your specific community? Another great question is, what does success look like? So if you can tell us what success looks like, then we also can get quite excited about your project. The when and the where, just as an example, once again, try to be specific. We know dates can change. We know that there might be dependencies on when this could happen, or the stages it will take to actually get to where you can actually deliver something. So I always suggest that, you put down the ideal time frames, and you make us aware of any kind of contingencies that you might be considering, where the dates might have to change, or where you're kind of a little unsure. It's really having those conversations in your application that let us know that you've got a really clear idea of what you think is going to happen, and when and why. Will it cost? What the funding is going to be expended on is really important. Obviously, the grant funds need to go towards the charitable project. As I said, if you are doing something like having prizes or some activities, and that's a part of your project, and you give us the whole budget, that might be for 20,000 and you're asking for 15, you just tell us that these prizes and that kind of thing are going to be paid for either by our organisation or by a local, sponsor or something like that. So we do like to tell people that, you can apply for funding through this application for a bigger project. And this might be funding a specific part of that project. So if you give us the whole project budget, just make sure that you make it clear that we understand what this grant funds, and also where you can provide us with quotes for larger items. I do say to people, the easiest way, if you've got to get stuff from Officeworks, is just, make up an order online and do a screen print of it and share that as your quote. If you're looking for something which might require you to get contractors and you're having problems getting quotes at any time, please try and provide some rationale for the costs that you've put down, so that we can look at it and kind of, understand the logic that you're thinking of. But we do understand that sometimes getting quotes can be a little bit of a timing issue. So just try to give us the best indication you can. This is once again my guideline for writing the application and not getting yourself too worked up about it. Just use clear, simple language. The best applications are simple, but they tell you everything you need to know in just a logical way. They don't need to get flowery or even necessarily go into great detail. But do assume the reader knows nothing about your organization, project, or community. So just be specific when answering the questions. Avoid too much technical language and define words where necessary. Use evidence to support claims. You can reference documents and attach them. You can reference websites and other sources of information, but I hesitate to encourage you to do that and send us to some 200-page report because we're unlikely to read it. Better to put down the piece of evidence that says, we're acting on this recommendation from this report, and give the full title of the report, and then maybe say, you can link to it here, but don't count on us actually then going in and reading it. As I said, make it clear how you're going to use the requested funds, spell out acronyms, and use facts, not opinions. FRRR has lots and lots of resources online that can really help, particularly if you're not a super experienced grant writer, or even if you just want to get your organization kind of talking about your project planning. There's some great videos in there that you can show people, and definitely things like measuring success is something that's valuable to think about at the start in regards to, okay, we're going to do this project. How throughout it are we going to both record it? Who's going to take our photos? And what does success look like? How many people coming to an event does it look like? How many people completing a survey? Who are the big stakeholders that we will be engaging with that we need to tick off? So I do advise that if you've got the time, that you have a bit of a look at these Grantseeker resources on our website. FRRR has many different grants open at the moment. ANZ Seeds of Renewal is what you're all here for today. We also have another grant program closing tomorrow. That was for the cyclones in Queensland last year, at the end of last year and beginning of this year. We also have Strengthening Rural Communities, which is pretty much open throughout the year for grants up to 10,000 for a really broad range of projects. Nutrient Ag Solutions Community Grants opens tomorrow and offers grants up to 5,000 for national, rural, regional and remote communities. And we have a new grant program in second round, opening on the 1st of August. That is community-led climate solutions. So for anybody that's on the environmental sustainability kind of organizational or project end in this or looking at this grant, I advise you to maybe have a look at this when it opens, but definitely, or give us a call to talk about your project in regards to whether it sits best with the environmental sustainability of ANZ Seeds of Renewal, or really represents more of a community-led climate solutions. I'm very happy to answer any questions on that. As I said, it does close on the 1st of August at 5 p.m. If you have any issues or any delays, please contact us as soon as possible so that we can consider your individual circumstances if there's any risk of you not making this deadline. Okay, so there's a few new messages in the chat. I'm just on the cooperative, and you're saying you could ask the local shire to auspice. Potentially, local shires aren't allowed to apply for grants, so I've got your details there, Cassandra, so I'll actually send you an individual email and just clarify that for you. Is there any further questions from the floor? Okay, well, I wish you all great luck in applying for the grant, and thank you very much for your time. And yeah, encourage you to definitely look at all FRRR's grant opportunities and get in touch with us if you just want to discuss a project. Thank you.